What if I told you that one of the most iconic comedy duos in Hollywood history didn't just break up because of creative differences, but because of a single explosive argument that changed everything forever? And here's the real question I want you to think about as we go into this story. Have you ever been so close to someone, so connected, so powerful together, that one misunderstanding could completely destroy it all? Because that's exactly what happened with Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. Before we go deep, I want you to picture something. It's the late 1940s. America is rebuilding after war. People are hungry for laughter again. And then two men step onto the stage together. One smooth, calm, effortlessly cool. The other loud, chaotic, unpredictable. And somehow, it works. But here's what nobody saw behind the curtain. Tell me in your mind right now, have you ever worked with someone who made you feel like together you were unstoppable? Because that's exactly how Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis started. They weren't just partners, they were lightning in a bottle. Dean was the voice of calm charm, the man who could sing and smile and make everything feel easy. Jerry was the storm, wild expressions, physical comedy, constant movement, always pushing the limits of what people thought comedy could be. When they came together, it wasn't just funny, it was explosive. Audiences couldn't get enough. But here's where I need you to pause and think. Have you ever noticed how sometimes the thing that makes a partnership strong is also what destroys it? Because in Hollywood, success doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes it brings pressure, ego, expectations, and slowly, cracks begin to form. At first, Dean and Jerry were unstoppable. Movies, live shows, screaming fans, sold-out theaters. People didn't just like them, they adored them. But behind the scenes, something was shifting. Let me ask you something personal here. Have you ever felt like someone was getting all the attention while you were the one doing all the work? That feeling, quiet, slow, building resentment, that's where this story starts to turn. Jerry Lewis was becoming a star in his own right, not just part of a duo anymore. People started coming to see him. Studios started focusing on him. Cameras lingered on him. And Dean Martin, he noticed. But Dean wasn't loud about it. He wasn't dramatic. He was calm, too calm. And sometimes silence is more dangerous than shouting. Now imagine this. Two men, once inseparable, standing on set. The same jokes, the same routines. But something feels different. The energy is off. The timing isn't as sharp. The laughter isn't as effortless. And then, it happens. The argument. Not the kind you see in movies with shouting and broken objects. No, this one was worse. It was disappointment. It was frustration finally breaking through years of unspoken tension. It said that during production pressures and growing creative differences, things finally snapped between them. Jerry wanted more control, more spotlight, more direction in how things were done. Dean, on the other hand, was already emotionally pulling away. Now I want you to imagine being in that room. Two people who built something legendary, now standing on opposite sides of the same dream. And here's where I want you to really reflect. Have you ever reached a point in a relationship where you stopped arguing because you already emotionally checked out? That was Dean Martin. He didn't fight loudly. He didn't try to win the argument. He just withdrew. And that withdrawal shocked Jerry more than any shouting ever could. Because when someone stops fighting for you, it means something has already changed. The partnership that once felt like family was now becoming business. Cold, mechanical, distant. But let's go deeper into what this meant in Hollywood at the time. These weren't just two performers, they were a cultural phenomenon. Studios built entire films around their chemistry. Audiences didn't buy tickets for plots, they bought tickets for them. So when tension started to rise, it wasn't just personal, it was financial, it was public. It was emotional chaos behind a perfectly polished image. And here's the part most people don't realize. Sometimes the biggest breakdowns don't happen during the argument. They happen after. After the silence, after the distance, after both people start pretending everything is fine, while slowly building separate futures in their minds. Now let me ask you again. Have you ever stayed in something, friendship, relationship, partnership, long after you already knew it was ending? That's where Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis were. One of them was still trying to hold on in his own way. The other was already letting go quietly. And then came the final breaking point. Different accounts of Hollywood history describe it differently, but the truth remains the same. The partnership could no longer survive the growing creative tension, ego clashes, and emotional disconnect. And just like that, a legendary duo ended. No final performance that fixed everything. No perfect goodbye on stage. Just separation. And what makes this story so powerful is not just that they split, but how much they achieved before they did. Think about it. How many duos in entertainment history can you name that completely redefined comedy, performance, and chemistry on stage? Very few, and that's why this breakup shocked Hollywood. Because nobody expected something so perfect to fall apart. But here's the deeper lesson I want you to sit with for a moment. Sometimes people don't fall apart because they hate each other. Sometimes they fall apart because they grow in different directions. Now imagine being Jerry Lewis. You're loud, expressive, full of creative ideas bursting out of you. You want control. You want to evolve. You want to lead. And imagine being Dean Martin. You're smooth, calm, understated. You've built your identity on effortless charm, but now you feel overshadowed, misunderstood, maybe even replaced. Neither of them was wrong, but both of them were no longer aligned. And alignment is everything in partnership. So let me ask you something real here. Have you ever outgrown someone, but still cared about them deeply? That contradiction is exactly what makes this story so human. Because even after the split, the legacy of their partnership didn't disappear. It became the foundation for everything they did afterward. Both went on to massive solo careers, proving that their talent was never the issue. The issue was chemistry, timing, and emotional balance. But still, fans never forgot them together. Because what they had couldn't be recreated. And here's where I want you to really think deeply. If something amazing in your life ended, would you see it as a failure? Or as proof that it was real while it lasted? Because that's what this story really teaches. Now I want you to picture one last thing. Two men, once inseparable on stage, now walking separate paths. One chasing music and cool sophistication, the other chasing comedy dominance and creative control. No more shared spotlight, no more shared timing, just memories of laughter that once felt endless. And yet, those memories are exactly why we still talk about them today. Because real legends don't stay together forever. They burn bright enough that even after separation, the light still reaches us decades later. So now I want to bring this directly to you. Have you ever had a Dean and Jerry moment in your life? Someone you were once unstoppable with, but something changed. What happened? Was it an argument? Or just silence over time? And more importantly, did you try to fix it, or did you let it fade? Think about that for a moment. Because sometimes the story of Hollywood isn't so different from your own life. It's just louder, brighter, and on a bigger stage. But the emotions are the same. Before you leave, I want to thank you for staying with this story all the way through. If this story made you reflect, if it made you think about relationships, partnerships, or even your own experiences in life, then don't just scroll away. Tell me in the comments. Do you think Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis should have tried harder to save their partnership, or was it already destined to end? And while you're there, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more deep, emotional Hollywood stories like this one. Because every legend has a story, but not every story is told like this. See you in the next one. And after that split, something interesting happened that Hollywood didn't expect. Because when Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis went their separate ways, people assumed the story was over. The duo was finished, the laughter gone, the magic buried in old film reels. But here's the twist. Their separation didn't destroy them. It revealed them. I want you to think about this for a second. Have you ever gone through something that felt like a loss at the time, but later realized it forced you to become stronger? That's exactly what happened here. Dean Martin leaned fully into his identity as the cool icon. He refined his music career, became a symbol of effortless charm, and proved he could stand alone without the chaos of the duo. His voice, once part of a comedy act, became something timeless. Meanwhile, Jerry Lewis pushed even harder into comedy, direction, and creative control. He became more experimental, more ambitious, and even more polarizing, but undeniably influential. He wasn't just the funny half anymore. He was building his own empire of humor. But here's the part nobody talks about enough. Even after all the success, there was always a shadow of what they once were together. Let me ask you something. Do you think some connections are so strong that even when they end, they never truly disappear? Because years later, something unexpected happened. Time softened everything. The anger faded, the distance cooled, and eventually there were moments of quiet respect between them again. Not a reunion of partnership, but a recognition of history. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Not every ending is meant to be repaired, but every ending still means something. Now I want to ask you, if you were in their position, would you have reached out first, or let pride keep the distance forever? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because the next story might change the way you see fame, friendship, and loyalty forever.